This video today is all about the stacked wide receiver draft class for the year 2024. I'm going to get my top 5 wide receivers in this class. I'm going to talk about that second tier of wide receivers and try to make some sense out of who's who in that one. And I also have some sleeper picks at the end in this draft class that you should watch out for. We got all that and more starting right now. Yo, what up, though? It's Aaron Duncan here with the Necessary Bluntness Sports Talk. I do recap and analysis of the draft and the Carolina Panthers, so make sure you hit that subscribe button to make sure you stay up to date on all draft content, doing profiles, mock drafts, different discussions and narratives like this, of course, with rankings that you got to get in like that. So I do film breakdowns and analysis for the NFL, but I've decided this year to really turn an eye to the NFL draft and look at a lot of these prospects coming out, because a lot of these narratives get pushed online, and I'm really not going to be falling victim to these guys this year. So I've decided to put my own work in and decided to create my own process with evaluating prospects, look at prospects in different ways, and just give my opinion on them because I trust my eyes. I'm not being fooled like I was last year by some of these people that like to spin certain narratives about certain players. I want to do the homework myself. So if you want to join along on my journey as I start to really take part and sink my teeth into this process, hit that subscribe button and the bell notification. That way you don't miss anything. But it feels like we say it every year, but this wide receiver class is pretty stacked, one of the most stacked ones in a while. It just seems like the wide receiver position continues to really grow as the NFL is becoming more of a passing game. We know a lot more 11 personnel, a lot more spreading of the field. We know that things change with defenses reacting to that with these too high shell coverages. So it seems like the field is a lot more wide open, but there seems to be a crops every year of wide receivers that continue to emerge, and this one is no different. I think obviously it's top heavy, but there's a lot of different arch types and body types in this class that if you're a general manager and you're looking for help at the wide receiver position, if you don't get somebody in this class, you probably need to be fired, just because if you're looking for a specific skill set or size or whatever, there's probably a guy in this class that you can find, and there's a lot of diamonds in the rough as well. So you really have to do your homework, but if you know what you're looking for, you know what you want, you can find prospects in this class. Obviously, wide receiver is a sexy position. We saw last year there's a lot of second round budding receivers that came that really made an early impact, and it's just amazing how some guys that are drafted higher don't always have the same translation. We did see Zay Flowers, who had a great year, but we saw other guys like Jaden Reed and Tank Dell and Rashee Rice have just as much impact as these guys being drafted in the second round. And so you really have to kind of do, like I said, do your homework, and team fit matters. I'm going to make my rankings and talk about this stuff, but a lot of this stuff has to do with situation, just like any player. What kind of role will they be playing in? What kind of quarterback will they have? What are their expectations? Because you play a guy out of position, you may not be able to get the best of them. The potential may be there, but it may take a little bit of time for them to develop. Then again, if you have wide open spread offenses that you put a guy in and space them to operate like Tank Dell, no matter how small he is, this guy is dynamic, twitchy, can separate. He can make an impact, an early impact, and be obviously one of the best, if not the best wide receiver on that Texans team. So you just never really know how these guys are going to project. It's really all about fit, but that's no fun. We have to talk about the process now. And before I get into my top 5 rankings, again, they're my top 5 rankings. I stand on these because I've watched film on most of these guys in this group, along with some broadcast breakdowns and stuff like that, and just looking at the all 22 along with the broadcast stuff, looking at the measurables. Things are going to be changing. This is my fluid rankings right now. Obviously the combine is going to play a factor, because some of these guys, their athletic profile is going to answer some questions about what type of player they can potentially be. Obviously the t-shirt Olympics or the field day Olympics that are going to be happening in Indianapolis aren't going to make or they could make or break some guys, but the tape is always going to always trump that stuff. However, it can't be ignored, and is going to really try to see that, okay, hey, do I need to go take a second look at this guy because of this 40 he ran, or if he ran it too fast or ran it so slow? Is that a guy that may catch my eye, that make me want to go look at him because I wasn't expecting, I haven't really heard about him or done my homework on him, but now that I see he did this, that, and the third of the combine, he looked good running routes, maybe I need to go take that second look. So the combine will really tell a lot about some guys, but these are still my fluid rankings. Now, of course, I want some feedback from you guys, but I know how a lot of you guys get in terms of drafts. You get very, very emotional. I don't know what it is, but draft season is very, very polarizing. Joe Schmo that went to University of so-and-so, that transferred there, that helped your team when so-and-so, that gave you some of the best memories at homecoming, that went to your favorite university. You may be offended because he's not here, or he's too low, or he's too high. Take it up with the judge. These are my rankings. You can do your own homework. I've done mine, looking at the all 22. Like I said, looking at the broadcast tape. I've done my own homework. So these are my rankings. So let's go ahead and start with number one. Number one, of course, is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. Yes, 88 Jr. out of the University of Ohio State, or Ohio State University, whatever they like to call themselves these days. And this is not a surprise to anyone. This is a very, very top tier prospect. I know there's AJ Green comps, and I think they're perfect. He was the best wide receiver in the game. Just the size, the fluidity, the body control, the ability to go up and elevate and catch passes, the ability to run after the catch still, to be a 3-level threat in the short, intermediate, and a long game. This guy really pretty much does it all. He will be an impact wide receiver from day one in the league and will be a quarterback's best friend. I talked about system mattering for people. Yeah, you want to put him in the right position, but it really doesn't matter. This guy is kind of system proof. And you know what I'm saying? This guy is going to be an asset from the jump. And I expect him to be force fed, relied upon heavily by Kyler Murray. And it's just really going to be something good for him to be able to go with an experienced quarterback in this league. I don't know what their system is going to look like per se, but I assume it's going to be spread out. But I expect him to be an impact player right off the jump. Now, some of the drawbacks on him, he's going to have to get used to probably just the step up in competition, because the corners are going to be a lot more physical. There's going to be a different variety of corners. They're going to actually challenge you as well. Corners are going to they're not going to be afraid of you in the league like that off the jump. They're going to test you and see what you have. You're going to have to earn your stripes and earn your keep. So I do expect him to be tested early on, but I just don't think that this guy is going to have any problem making that adjustment and being the productive receiver that we all expect him to be. It's not really hard. This guy's the number one receiver in this draft, probably the number one player in this draft class. Once in a blue moon, I'm not going to say generational, I'll just say once in a blue moon type of player. My number two wide receiver is probably no surprise as well. It's going to be Malik Neighbors, wide receiver out of the Louisiana State University. I'm gonna start using the whole government name of these universities just for fun. Regardless, Malik Neighbors is a do-it-all wide receiver. He's gonna get his bread buttered after the catch in the league. He's a menace when the ball gets in his hands, man. He's strong after the catch. He has a nice stiff arm. He's shifty. He has an explosiveness to really go from 0 to 60. That's probably illegal in most states, because this guy is just he's going to be an explosive athlete and an explosive weapon for any system that you put it in. If you have somebody that's creative as well that can use him, he can, like I said, attack at all three levels. I talk about being able to win at all three levels, being able to separate in the short and intermediate, but also having the speed to be able to run past cornerbacks as well. It's not just his speed, it's his deceleration ability that helps him win in the short and intermediate as well. Not only can he run by you on the go pattern on the sideline, but he also has the ability to snap off routes super fast and just create all kind of space. He uses that threat of being able to run past you to snap those routes off, get you kind of retreating and just break it off, give the quarterback a nice easy target for him to hit. I really like Malik Neighbors' game. I don't know where he'll end up, but I would love, he can be in the slot, he can play on the outside, he can do whatever you want. The drawbacks on him, sometimes he can be out competed, I guess is the worst word to say, at the catch point. You want to see him attack the ball a little bit more at times when he's going downfield. He doesn't really high point all the time consistently. He kind of lets the ball come to him. He's a hands catcher down the field sometimes with that, but he doesn't always just elevate and win one-on-one. But I don't think he has any problem of projecting to be able to improve in that area, but he has the athletic profile to be able to win in a multitude of ways. So I'm not overly concerned about Malik Neighbors in that regard. He does catch the ball with his body a decent amount of times, but he doesn't have any problem catching the ball with his hands and concentrating and plucking the ball there. So I'm not overly concerned, but just a lot of body catches that pop up on tape for Malik Neighbors. But he's still solidly my number 2 wide receiver. Number 3 is going to be Rome Odunze, wide receiver from the University of Washington. Now, Rome Odunze is an interesting class because what separates him and Malik Neighbors is just that all-around athletic profile. Now, Rome Odunze, He may not be the most overwhelming athlete, but he's silky smooth. He doesn't have any problem running the route tree. He doesn't have any problem going deep and winning, like I said, at all 3 levels. That's what separates these 3 guys from the rest, is the ability to win consistently at all 3 levels. One-on-one, Roma Dunze was pretty much unstoppable in this past year and the past few years, honestly. And whether it was him catching a back shoulder, him making an adjustment, him just like high pointing passes, Roma Dunze really has it all, man. He's just a winner. And like I said, he doesn't have an overwhelming athletic profile, but his lack of athleticism does not hinder him from doing anything. So it's not the fact that he's too slow or he can't jump high. It's just the fact that if he had all those extra tools that he was gifted with, it would probably be even scarier, because this guy is pretty polished of a wide receiver as well. Gets in and out of his cuts pretty smooth. Like I said, nothing really super sharp or dramatic with the athleticism, but he has no problem getting out of breaks. He has no problem making quick adjustments to passes depending on where the placement of the ball is from quarterbacks. This guy is just going to have the full package. He's going to have to just line up and win. And he can do it in a multitude of ways. Like I said, he can just line up and win. And like I said, he just doesn't have game-breaking athleticism, but it's not going to hold him back from being a very productive wide receiver. He's an old-fashioned line him up on the outside or in the slot if you want to, and let's just play ball and win. I'm going to beat you one-on-one. If you leave me one-on-one, throw it up to me, quarterback. I'm going to make a play for you type of guy. And that has a place in the NFL all day, every day. You know what I'm saying? It gets cute having the yak and all that stuff, and he can provide some of that as well. He's just not a super explosive athlete like a Malik Neighbors that can really turn it on and turn nothing into something. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that he's going to hamstring any kind of offense, but Roma Dunze is going to be a productive wide receiver in this NFL. I have no doubts about that. I really love his game. It's really beautiful to really watch him play with his route running and how he sets stuff up for a guy that big to be able to move as smooth and as cool and as nuanced as he does. It's a sight to see. My number 4 wide receiver on my list is going to be a little bit polarizing. It's going to be Keon Coleman, wide receiver out of University of Florida State. Now, I know with time that happens, people tend to let these prospects fall out of favor for them. And I think Keon Coleman, he started the year so hot and kind of really didn't sustain that with obviously the injuries to the starting quarterback, Jordan Travis. His production kind of waned off. He had a couple games where he struggled at times in some places, and the production just wasn't there because he ripped off a 3-touchdown game to start the year. And it was really crazy what he was doing in that Clemson game as well, where he completely just took over and dominated and won the game on a walk-off overtime snag jump ball. It was just crazy what he was doing early on in the year. He looked like he really could have been wide receiver 2 in this class the way things started off, but obviously other guys like Malik and Rome just kind of elevated. But I'm not going to let Keon Coleman fall too far out of grace. For me, I'm probably going to be a little bit higher on Keon than a lot of people. I know everybody's obsessed with separation. Can he separate? And I think separation is very important. It's not that's a very big key, but I think it's become the hot word for the NFL and it's just online discourse for wide receivers in terms of doing that, because everybody's not going to be a super sharp route runner and precise route runner like a Roma Dunze or some other guys in this draft class that I'll talk about a little bit later. But you can still win. How do you win? Tell me how you win. And how Keon Coleman wins is using that 6'4", 215-pound frame and he's just the ability to go up over cornerbacks and just out-muscle them. Just because you're not super twitchy out of breaks doesn't mean you can't separate with physicality. When a cornerback is leaning on you, you give him a little bit of flipper or a fin, boom, lean on him and get him off you and create space. You know what I'm saying? I've seen him do that. I've seen him press vertical and showing that he has adequate speed. That's really kind of underrated in my opinion. I honestly, from what I'm hearing, the rumbles and on word on the street, you know what I'm saying, what the streets is saying is that Keon Coleman is going to surprise a lot of people at the combine with his 40-yard dash. We will see, because If he does that, I will be looking a lot better about my wide receiver 4 ranking for him, because a lot of people think he's too slow. He can't separate. He's a big lumbering guy like that. But I could test that with saying that, hey, this guy return punts. You're not going to be able to return punts if you don't have some kind of speed, some kind of shiftiness, some type of agility to be able to change direction as well. And I think he has that in his game. I think there's a lot of untapped potential in terms of the yards after catch ability as well. We've seen it a little bit. Like I said, we saw it in that first game where he caught a slant, dodged the defender, and took it to the crib. But a lot of that is still a little bit of meat left on the bones in terms of Keon Coleman. I just think that this guy has the tools at that size. He's going to get better. I mean, my goodness, the kid is only 20 years old. He won't be 21 until May 17th. Shout out to the May Tars. You know what I'm saying? That's your boy. His birthday is the day around mine, but he's only 20 years old. So this guy is still going to get better, man. And like, I just think there's so many tools with that basketball background. You're going to be able to add a little bit more tools to the toolbox. He's going to have the athleticism that when you get good coaching around him as well, the sky is going to be the limit for him, man. I think he's going to have all the tools and the reasons to be a quality starting wide receiver in this league that's going to be big time and has a way to win. Like I said, you see them dominant games that he has. It makes you think that, okay, hey, I want to see a receiver do this type of thing. I want to see a receiver have a dominant game where there's literally nothing the defense can do about it. That lets you know that he has that ability to take over, that he has certain matchups that he's just going to win and dominate all day, every day. Don't tell me what's wrong with a prospect. Tell me how a guy wins, and the way Keon Coleman wins, I'm a big fan of. So I know people claim, like I said, the separation issues, and I understand that. I think they're going to automatically lock in any wide receiver that's taller than 6'2" and more than 210 pounds and just think that these guys can't separate. And it's just, I think it's lazy analysis, and I think that Keon Coleman is going to be able to win different ways that I think that that people aren't really ready and expecting. Like I said, the combine and the athletic profile is going to really be key for Keon Coleman, and I wouldn't be surprised if people fall in love with him. He goes a lot higher than most of the draft sphere thinks he will. But if there's any kind of way on God's green earth that he falls to my Carolina Panthers at number 33, they better sprint to that podium and not look back. I mean, Friday, they probably, after Thursday night when the draft, after it ends, and when they're on the clock them past hours before Friday, they better be sleeping like a baby with a smile on their face and prepare to run that slip up in a hurry for Keon Coleman. He will be wide receiver 1 from jump in Carolina. And my number 5 wide receiver number 5, and the last one on this list for this video is going to be none other than Ladd McConkey, wide receiver out of the University of Georgia. Now, Ladd McConkey is a very interesting player. 5'11", 187. We know that he was not in a pass-heavy offense. Yeah, he wasn't the number 1 option in that offense. So people have some concerns about that. People have concerns about his size. People have concerns about his athleticism because they're going to comp him to every Caucasian wide receiver in the NFL, which is fine, I guess. And it's kind of lazy analysis as well. Every white receiver doesn't have to be comped to a white receiver, because I'm really curious, what do you guys do with other position players? Like, who do you comp? Who did you comp Christian McCaffrey to coming out? Like, who are you going to comp Cooper DeJean to? Because there's not many white DBs or white running backs in the league. You're not going to comp Christian McCaffrey to Toby Gerhart. You got to actually stop being lazy and comp these guys to who you think their skill sets could match up. And I've heard comps of Deontay Johnson. I kind of like a Doug Baldwin comp as well, with a little bit more route savvy, but I think he's just really, really crafty in the way he operates, and the smarts and playing from that slot is what I think McConkey can do. But I think he's personally the best route runner in this draft, and we talked about those second wide receivers like Jaden Reed and Tank Dell. Those guys translated because they separated well. What did they do? They went to the Senior Bowl, played a one-on-one, pretty much was unguardable because their ability to be twitchy, their ability to separate, the ability to get in and out of breaks, the ability to give a lot of moves at the top of routes that just continue to leave defensive backs guessing, and they continue to make an impact for their teams as rookies early on. So time and time again, despite size, despite what you guys think, if you can run routes and you can separate, don't let all that other BS fool you. That's going to translate. Will the ceiling be as high as some of these other guys that are flashier, that can go up and climb the ladder athletic wise, that may be taller, have longer arms, run faster? No. But Time and time again, we see separators translate to the NFL when they're in the right spot. So, Lad McConkey, I'm not going to call him Cooper Kupp like y'all do, like I said, but you guys know that you can be a productive weapon from the slot. You know what I'm saying? You can be one. And I think Lad McConkey has the potential to be a very, very productive and dependable guy. A guy that runs good, consistent routes, that can get in and out of breaks easy and is where he's supposed to be. Quarterbacks love that, especially quarterbacks that throw with anticipation, that need somebody in the middle of the field. Like I said, with these 11 personnel heavy way that the NFL is leaning, you're going to have access in from that slot position to be able to work that middle of the field. And quarterbacks love those type of guys because they're easy targets, because they can get open. They know how to find places in zones, and they're going to be scrappy and be able to get yards after the catch. And I think Lad McConkey is that. I know people have concerns about him being athletic enough or strong enough against press. I'm not worried about it. I like his game. If you're concerned about that, put him in a slot. Put him at the Z position, run him in motion. Get him some free access and free releases. Motion has been such a big part of the NFL nowadays. Complaining about guys not being able to get off jam that can play the slot or play and can go in motion. Those are answers to be able to mask that until they get better. And if you don't feel comfortable with Lad McConkey on let's lining up and winning, put him in motion, put him in the slot. This guy is going to run the route tree better than most in this class. And like I said, I think he's probably the best route runner in this class. He wins with leverage, with leans, with stems, with sticks, just all the little stuff that it takes to be a crafty wide receiver. I really like his game. Like I said, he was in a run heavier offense at times, and he was obviously not the first option. Brock Bowers is that guy. There's nothing to really be shameful about in terms of that. So I still think there's a lot of upside in terms of what you see from his production, because his yards per route run is up there with the best of the top 4 in this draft class. So that lets you know when he got opportunities, he was productive. But I just think that obviously the drawbacks on him are going to be the injuries and just his production not being there. Like, can you get a 1,000-yard year from Lad McConkey? Can he be a wide receiver one primarily playing in the slot? Is he that type of guy? Because he can take those end arounds and pop passes. He has a punt return background. He's just not overly shifty and stuff like that, but he can really take advantage of what's there in the space and a runway for him to take off. He will do that. And I honestly love Lad McConkey, man. Very dependable hands. His size and speed will be a deterrent for some people, but like I said, we constantly see these separators make that adjustment on the next level. I like McConkey's game, bro. He's my wide receiver 5. You guys let me know down below in the comments how you feel about my top 5 wide receivers in this class. Obviously, there's probably not a ton of argument about the top 3, but I want to get you guys' thoughts on 4 and 5. A quick question real quick. Do you like sports? Of course you do. You're watching this sports channel. Of course, it's unnecessary blunt and sports talk. But how about making money? We all like making money. Bills got to get paid. But how about doing both at the same time? Sounds good. Well, I want to tell you about the partner I've been working with, Underdog Fantasy. It's the easiest way to get some action in sports and also make these games a little bit more interesting. Right now, they have their pick'em option that they're doing, and I've been all over it for the NBA playoffs. So it's pretty straightforward. All you got to do is just pick higher or lower on your favorite or least favorite, I guess, player stats for the night, and you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night. And one of my favorite parts about Underdog Fantasy is the pick'em insurance, because none of us are perfect. So this gives you a little extra wiggle room. So if one of your guys that you have on your slip misses, you still have a chance to collect some money because of that pick'em insurance got your back. So here's what I want you to do. Go ahead and download the Underdog Fantasy app and use the code DUNKON100 to get a 100% match on your first deposit for my gift to you. And we can bet along together. You can even follow me on Twitter, where I post most of my underdog picks on a daily basis. We can all get paid together. And their mobile app is pretty slick, and their website is pretty straightforward too. So you'll have no problem jumping right in and getting to the bread like me. Must be 18 years or older to play and be present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Are you concerned with your play? Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit www.mcpgambling.org for help. So the interesting discussion is really what starts after those first crop of wide receivers that go up there. Now, my first tier 1 guys are those top 3. I gave you my top 5, but I think Keon Coleman and Lad McConkey kind of fall more into this second tier of wide receiver than anything. And it's just it really just depends on what your flavor is in terms of putting these guys in order. I already gave you my top 5 rankings, so I'm not going to rank these guys, but I just want to talk about some of the skill sets and the guys that are around, because there's just, like I said, a cornucopia of guys, because If you want a route runner as a slot guy, you can go ahead and go for Ladd McConkey. He may be exclusively a slot like we talked about because of the athleticism, or you're concerned about him playing press, but he's definitely a winner there and can be a great piece to any offense and very, very quarterback friendly. But if you want to go for that big body type of guy, you have those Keon Coleman's, you have the Xavier Legette's, you have the Adonai Mitchells, and even amongst those three guys, they have a little bit of a different skill set from that standpoint. And you can even throw Brian Thomas Jr. in there, but I wouldn't even categorize him there because his game is just so much more different. Even though he's 6'4", he just plays completely different from all those other guys. With Keon Coleman, an above the rim type of player, very physical type of guy. People have concerns about his route running and all that stuff, and I talked about that. But if you want another bigger body guy that has a lot more yak ability, can actually go up as well as physical, may not be as tall, but still plays big, you can go after Xavier Legette. He has that body type of an AJ Brown. I've even comped him to Dez Bryant and heard that there. Just a physical guy after the catch if you want to play that type of ball. But Brian Thomas Jr., I have concerns about his route tree, but in terms of just being able to run and go get it, I don't think there's too many guys in this draft that can do it better than him. Just when he's even, he's leaving. Because if he plays against off coverage and he gets even with a defender, he's going to start separating about that 20, 25 yard mark. Quarterbacks just throw it up, let him go run under it. Not too many guys in this class are going to be able to track the ball with him, but I know I read some stat about 66% of his routes were ran on a straight line, whether it was a curl, a go, or something like that. What other parts of the route tree do you have? Doesn't really high point the ball all the time for a guy that's 6'4", can get it up high, but not too much of a basketball type of above the rim guy. If you want a guy like that, you can go Adonai Mitchell. Adonai Mitchell is going to be that 50-50 guy, provides a little bit probably better route running than some of the other guys that I named, but his route running is not as consistent as you would like. Offers a little bit too many of a head fakes at the top, some wasted motion at times, and doesn't really provide much yak himself. But all the other guys in this category provide some level of yak. So if you need a taller wide receiver, there's a variety of stuff. Like I said, the deep threat and Brian Thomas, the above the rim guy with with Keon Coleman, the yak guy with Legette. Adonai Mitchell, not much yak, but he can also get that 50-50 ball as well. It's just how you want. What flavor do you want? You know what I'm saying? What's your flavors? 31 flavors like Baskin Robbins in this draft at the wide receiver position. So if that's what you're into, that's what you're into. But let's talk about some of these speed guys that I think is in this second tier. And that's going to start with Troy Franklin. Troy Franklin is, 6'3", 190. I've seen him as low as 178. We'll see what he weighs in at the draft. Very, very thin and rarely guy, but extremely twitchy. This guy has a very productive year, but he has that yak ability, that change of direction ability, the ability to go across the middle, take a slant to the crib if you give him enough space, the ability to run by your secondary and catch passes that way. For a guy that's 6'3", doesn't really high point the ball either, can run under and track it, he's going to need to be in a good system where a guy that pushes the ball down the field. A lot of people have talked about being with potentially a Josh Allen type with those guys that push the ball like that, or maybe the Jaguars wouldn't take a receiver, but a Trevor Lawrence that throws the ball downfield as well. Maybe even a Patrick Mahomes, who knows? But he's going to be very, very dependent on the system because I think physical coverage can really bother him. So he may need to come in a little bit earlier, be a wide receiver too, until he gets a little bit stronger and used to that type of stuff and be able to develop. But if you want a really, really track guy, Xavier Worthy is your guy. He's another guy in this category. The hands are a little bit suspect at times, and he can drop some layups. And if he doesn't have space at all, he may drop a pass if there's any kind of contact there. He doesn't provide a lot there, but he's going to create a lot of space because he has world-class speed. He has a world-class ability to stop as well. He can catch the pop pass, the end arounds, the screens, and take it to the distance. Really can attack all areas of the field. He stresses a defense before and after the catch. So he's a speed guy that you can really, really have as a game changer. Like I said, the hands are just kind of suspect. I know people are going to comp him to Tyreek Hill, the Cheetah. I wouldn't do that because Cheetah is one of those guys, but Xavier Worthy provides that type of threat and that type of speed to the game. And like I said, there's just concerns about the routine drops in general. But I think that the speed, if you want a speed guy, he's your man, because these guys are just my group of the tier 2 guys. And like I said, things are still fluid as the process goes on, as I get more tape, as the combine goes by, as I start to dive a little bit deeper into more of these guys' games. The rankings will be fluid, but I still think that this tier of wide receivers as that second tier is pretty safe, and I feel comfortable with this group. Some guys may enter themselves in there just based on how I feel, but I think this is that core group of guys that can go in that late first, pretty much second, day 2 of the draft, you know what I'm saying? And those are the guys, like I said, that may impact in that class, that Jaden Reed, Rashee Rice, like I said, those guys, you know. So I'm really excited about this, guys, especially, like I said, me being a Panthers fan and them having them at 33. These are some of the guys they're going to have to be looking for. Now, Brian Thomas, people may fall in love with his skill set and draft him high in the first round. I would probably have to see him run a full route tree before I do that. Keon Coleman, I think, will probably go in the first, but if he falls, Lord Jesus, please. I hope he's a Panther. But it's just, that's whatever your flavor is going to be how you sort these rankings out. I'll probably do a full top 10 later on in the draft process, but I just think there's still some, what's your flavor in this class, and what do you value more? Do you value size? Do you value speed? Do you value big playability? Do you value big play potential? Do you value upside? What do you look for in your wide receiver, and what do you like? I think all these guys have some drawbacks and some concerns, to the point that not a lot of them could have clearly separated themselves and put themselves until that tier 1. Is anybody knocking on the door? I think Keon Coleman could be knocking on the door. I think Brian Thomas Jr. could be knocking on the door. But like I said, it just depends what is your flavor. So who are my sleepers wide receivers in this draft right now that I've gotten to? The first one is Taj Washington, wide receiver out of the University of Southern California. He is a miniature wide receiver, but he was 5'9" and 7/8 at the East-West Shrine Bowl, but he pretty much was unstoppable in one-on-ones. He's twitchy, he's fast, he's quick after the catch. I think he'll be a consistent chain mover, not really strong after the catch because of his size, but he can find holes in his own. He's smart, dependable hands, doesn't have a huge catch radius, but those little guys that can really do their thing underneath, the Cole Beasley type. I think he's Cole Beasley with the better athletic profile in terms of twitchiness. Doesn't necessarily have the long speed, but he's quick enough to be able to do what he does across the middle. You can give him the pop pass, you can give him the drag route and throw it to him there. You can give him a little leak out into the flats and give it to him there, let him go. He can do a lot of things, man, and he was a good weapon for Caleb Williams over the years. Scored a good amount of touchdowns. I say he had a great showing in the East-West Shrine Bowl. He's small, so he'll be a day 3 guy, and he's a guy that you just could take a chance on. Like I said, he could find a role in your rotation. He'll be a chain mover. You know what I'm saying? He may not be a huge play guy, but he's definitely a chain mover. My number 2 sleeper pick is Jermaine Burton, wide receiver out of Alabama. Now, I know he's a very polarizing guy because a lot of people have concerns about his mentality and his mental makeup because of some off the field stuff. But he also has a problem just in the game, just being a little bit of a hothead, talking too much trash, getting caught up too much in the individual battles instead of the greater good of the game, getting flags and stuff like that. It's just, it'll be hard to be able to reel him in. Just a kind of a head case at times, kind of what you saw from a guy like George Pickens, you know what I'm saying, coming out of Georgia in terms of just in game and beefing with wide receivers and stuff like that. You want to see your receivers compete and be competitive, but you gotta want to be able to have control and composure. But in terms of on the field, this guy is going to be a deep threat for somebody. He could be a number 3 wide receiver with number 2 upside just because of his long speed and how he threatens the defense. Very twitchy in terms of how he snaps off routes. Sometimes he's a little bit too dramatic and he doesn't get out of his breaks as fast as it looks that he's going to, but he can easily be more consistent with it because he's shown that he does throw the brakes on pretty fast. But when you see him throw the brakes, sometimes it's a little bit too dramatic. The body movement is too much, and he's not really getting out as fast as it seems like. You know what I'm saying? They're exaggerated movements, but he moves like one of those typical Alabama wide receivers, the Calvin Ridley type of twitchiness in terms of running routes. He's not very good after the catch because he can run because he's fast, but he's not shifty. He's not going to make guys miss. He's not going to break a lot of tackles because he's not very thick or strong in terms of just his body size. But if there's an alleyway for him to run, he'll be able to take off like that. If there's a runway for him to go, he'll take off. and do it. But not game-breaking ability after the catch, but I think his speed and his ability to adjust to certain passes down the field. He could play in the slot. He could play on the outside as well. I think his name is kind of falling by the wayside a bit, and we'll see what happens with the off-the-field stuff, and we'll see how much teams weigh that stuff and what happens with those interviews. But just on the field, my mentality, I think that he's being underrated a little bit, and I think with better quarterback play, because he had to adjust to a lot of bad thrown balls by Jalen Milroe this year. But I think that he's shown enough that I'm confident in his speed and his fast twitch ability to be able to change directions and threaten deep and then snap routes off, that he'll be able to be somebody that can be find a role. You know, guys that can get deep and stretch defenses, they can find a role in this league, and he has pretty good hands. So I think that Jermaine Burton is a sleeper in this draft. My last sleeper is going to be Jaquan Jackson, wide receiver out of the University of Tulane. Now, he's not going to be slept on as much anymore after his week at the Senior Bowl, but this guy is fast with guys that are rather smaller, but I'm a sucker for the undersized wide receiver. And Jaquan Jackson is one of those guys that at Tulane, he actually played pretty well, was pretty productive in their system, and I think this guy is going to be able to find him a role. He know he's kinfolk with Ed Reed, the Hall of Fame safety. So it's in his blood a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But I really like what I saw from him at the Senior Bowl and what he did there. And just a little bit I've seen, it makes me want to do a deeper dive into Jaquan Jackson. And I think maybe, day 3, day 2, who knows where he's going to sneak into after the combine. He'll be an asset for somebody maybe early on day 3, a 5th round pick, one of those guys that fall through the cracks. And we're just like, dang, how did so-and-so get him? How did he end up doing this, that, and the third? I think he ends up being one of those guys that does that people wonder how they missed out on him. How did they let him slip? And it happens every year, and I think Jaquan Jackson could fit the bill. But overall, I really love this wide receiver class, man. Like I said, as a Panthers fan, that we need wide receiver and offensive line, this is the great draft to have. I want to see us try to get more picks and see what happens there, but we'll figure out what happens. You guys let me know down below in the comments how you feel overall about this draft class. Let me know your thoughts about this draft class. Let me know your thoughts about my sleepers and my rankings, and who is your favorite guy in this draft that nobody is talking about. Let me know a name down below in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed. I really appreciate you watching this video. I'll see you next time. Peace.